So why do we need to stop using exercises like sit-ups and crunches? Very simply, sort of number one, it's not great for the spine, or it's not necessarily advantageous for the spine, because when we come into large flexion movements and then lift up here and then we fatigue those areas, it's not an exact metaphor, but when we snap a credit card in half, we're constantly flexing back and forth, the fibers are fatiguing, and then eventually the credit card breaks. Your spine isn't going to break, but your tissues can become fatigued. So what we need to be able to do is minimize the amount of full flexion and load on the spine, because that is a mechanism for damaging the spine. The second thing is more to do with performance, is it can create a very rigid torso. And not only a rigid torso, but a rigid movement. And what we need to be able to do is try and have a little bit more dynamic strength from the torso, because that's how it's designed to move. And when we come on later and talk more about the kettlebells, we'll understand a little bit more about why that's important and why it's very different from doing exercises like this, because these are very sort of slow, controlled movements, and there's a time and a place for slow and controlled movement. But what we're doing is we're activating, we're curling up, and then we're coming up into this position. So as I mentioned, it's a very slow and controlled movement. And when I used to teach a lot more with kettlebells, one thing that you would find is people that were very adept at regular exercises like dumbbell presses, like pulling exercises, which again which are performed in a very slow and controlled way, and they were able to feel the muscle working, and the movement was slow. That's how their movement develops, and then they lose what we're going to talk about later. So they lose the ability to move fast, to use momentum, and to be able to be very efficient with their movement, which is what we want from the torso. So the first part to this is why we really need to move away from sit-ups, crunches, back extensions, because they're not great for the health of the spine, but they're also not great for the performance of the torso and the body as a whole.